If you are simply looking for the analyst predictions on how many shares you might need to retire off AMD stock by 2030, I've left it in the description down below or the chapters on the video's timeline. Now, if you want to see the actual math breakdown of how we actually get to that number, then make sure that you stick around. Okay, well, if you're still watching, then let's actually show how I break down this amount of money and what it can show you to actually retire off AMD stock, okay? So what we can see here is that the annual expenses for the average US citizen is around $60,000 a year. But that's of today in 2022. If we actually jump ahead to 2030, we have to factor in some inflation. And right now we're actually predicting that the inflation rate over the next 8 to 9 years is around 3%, because although it's super high today, it should be going back down to a projected benchmark of 2%. And that's how we know that we're going to be spending around 2030 of around $78,000 on average in just pure living expenses. But that's only one part of the equation. Now we also have to factor in how long we're going to be retired for. Considering that the average retirement age is around 18 years of length, I want to actually extend that because I want to be more conservative and assume an early retirement. So what I say is 25 years of retirement on average. That should lead us to needing around $1.95 million spent across those 25 years. But we're only going to actually need 900,000 of that, considering that we can put our investments into something safer like the S&P 500 and assume an 8% adjusted rate of return on that investment. So once we actually have this $900,000 and we can assume the 8%, this is what it actually looks like broken down right now, is that over the next 25 years, you know, our money is slowly draining down, but hopefully we'll still have around $153,000 left over after those 25 years of retirement. But if you're more frugal than spending $78,000 per year by 2030, then you know that, you can actually expand your retirement or not need the 900,000 for you to actually pull this off. And the same thing vice versa, right? If you spend more money than that, then you're going to need a lot more to actually retire, considering that you're going to be spending faster. Okay, now if you've seen any of my retire by 2030 videos in the past, you'll instantly notice that this one is going to be different. The format has changed. In the description down below, you can see a shareable link to this exact spreadsheet where you can actually go in and check out what the growth will be on whatever the price is of the stock whenever you're checking that day. So whether you're checking from a month from now or 6 months from now, the price will be updated in live time. I'm going to retroactively change that for all my existing videos and put those spreadsheets out so then you guys can check them whenever you'd like, depending on if the price of the stock has changed since I made the video. It's going to take me a little bit of work to actually update the existing ones, but I think it'll bring positive feedback in the long run. But just so I know that I'm actually doing the right thing, if you could on this video, make sure you guys give this a like or just support the channel however you like, whether you're commenting down below what stock you'd like to see next or going and viewing my other videos to see how you could retire off a stock like Nvidia, for example. Okay, but enough of that. Let's jump into the main course, and this is going to be our most bearish low estimate. And as you can see, that's a compounded annual growth rate of 12.3%, okay? So that gives us a valuation of around $370 billion by 2030 if we actually go from $81.11 to $230.41. Let me preface this one by saying this is a bearish outlook, okay? I think it would be very abysmal if we only grew by 12.3% per year, considering the overall semiconductor market is considering to grow by over 13% per year. So you're considering AMD is going to be losing market share every single year. I highly doubt that, by the way, considering that we're the innovators on a lot of the chip technology today. But anyway, let's jump back into it. But the real question is, if we only grow by this specific rate until 2030, how many shares are we going to need to retire off, if we're buying the shares today? And that's a specific 3,906 shares or $317,000. Now, if you didn't hear me at the start of the video, I just want to repeat myself by saying that you can find this shareable link in the description down below, as all of this information, all the share counts, the money needed, the charts from the previous thing are all updated in real time. So depending on whatever time that you check it is going to update how many shares you might need or how much money you might need at that specific day that you go and check the chart. Now, jumping into our medium estimate, this was by far the most common, and it was the ones where people were talking about this stock hitting $1 trillion by 2030. And as of the time we're recording this video at $81.11, that would actually lead us to a price target of around $650 a share, or just a little bit over $1 trillion market cap. But the magic question is, how many shares and how much money are we going to need? And that's going to be around 1,386 shares as of the time of recording this video, or $112,000. Now, this is far bigger than the one that we saw previously in the low estimate, but that was a very bearish estimate. The ones going forward are actually going to be, in my opinion, a little bit more realistic than how, the stock is only going to grow at a 12% rate. Like, I don't think that they've seen how big the semiconductor market is and how fast it's growing, let alone how much AMD is growing on top of that actual market share. Going into these next two categories, I want to preface by saying that although there's an actual possibility that they happen, the high and pure hope categories come with a lot of improbabilities, as everything has to start to go right for these price targets to actually start to hit. And no individual retirement should actually be planned around one specific stock, but this is just just a great thought experiment to actually see how many shares would I need if I was actually investing in this stock, because some people already have this amount of money invested in AMD and it's not their only stock that they hold. But leading us into our high estimate, what we can see is a 33% compounded annual growth rate, or just under a $1.7 trillion market cap. This would lead us to a price target of around $1,056 per share, but how many shares would we actually need for this to be pulled off and that we can get our $900,000 to start actually retiring? And that, my friends, we would only need around 852 shares to retire, and that would look today of around $69,000 to actually set us up for retirement if we hit the high category and this stock actually does grow to $1.7 trillion by 2030. But now, for the one that you guys have all been waiting for, this is the pure hope category, the one that if everything goes right, that AMD could possibly land themselves in by 2030. I also have all the links down in the description down below of the people who are actually making these predictions, but let's see if this one can come true. This is a 40% compounded annual growth rate, or almost a $2.7 trillion market cap, okay? That would lead us to a price target of just $1,675.82. Now, this would lead us to just around 60% more than the previous estimate alone, okay? And that was even a big target, and now this is going to be even bigger, okay? So $2.7 trillion valuation, very exciting. But for the moment that you guys have all been waiting for, how many shares would you actually need to retire off this? And that's coming in at around 537 shares, or just over $43,500, okay? This has been a very exciting estimate, and if you want to see all of these updated in real time, okay, like I said, down in the description down below, get yourself the actual spreadsheet, and you can see, you know, how many shares it actually updates to whenever you're actually watching this video, whether that's a month from my posting or 6 months or even a year, okay? The actual amount of growth is going to be updated in live time. Okay, those were some great predictions, but what are people saying about Nvidia stock and how many shares you might need to retire off Nvidia stock by 2030? If you guys haven't already and you want to support the channel, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe down below if you want to see more financial content just like this.